So I am jumping on today to talk about a model of education that a lot of people don't actually know about. And I think it's a really great alternative if for some reason you can't homeschool, which, obviously a lot of people can't. And the other thing too that's great about this alternative is it's very easy to set up. I mean, fairly easy. And also with the COVID situation, it looks like it's just moving into the fall. A lot of people are trying to figure out what to do with their children because I don't think most parents want their children on computers all day long, and quite right too, especially for younger children. So let me tell you about this model of education that I think is actually equal to a homeschooling model. They're both equal in the sense of the kind of education that you can deliver to a child, but they both have a pro and a con. Just one, I think, which I'll go over. But it's the one-room schoolhouse model, and it's the model that was very popular in America. The turn of until about 1850, 1900s was when they started. Between that period is when they started phasing them out. But it's also when our literacy rates were the highest. So that was the model we used when we were at the top of our game as far as educating our children went. It's also a model that's been used around the world in traditional settings, traditional cultures, where the learning was just, such a high level of intellectual training. We just don't find it today like we used to find in these traditional models. So the one-room schoolhouse it functions very much like a homeschool, because you have children in basically one room. You have a teacher, depending on the size, you might have, she might have an assistant. But you'll have, 4 or 5, sometimes 10 families in a room together. And the children are of different ages. Usually it's first grade through 8th grade. That was a traditional schoolhouse. And so it's, all the children are learning in this one room, different ages. What's interesting is all the children go at their own pace. So let me tell you how it works. So you've got the teacher, let's say you've got 12 children in the room, right? So she'll come in, she'll start the day. The children will have work that they're working on independently, and she'll bring each child up, and sometimes maybe 2 or 3 children if they're at the same level. She'll bring them up to her desk, she'll give them their lesson, she'll send them back. They'll work on the work that she's given them to do, and then she'll pull the next, child or 2 or 3 children up, right? So each child is going at their own pace. There's no group learning in this. Now, what's I think such an important aspect of raising children, and especially of educating them, is just reaffirming what they know. And also for children to have something that they are aspiring towards. And the schoolhouse model provides this, because when you have little children, they see the older children. So if you have a first grader and then you have a 7th grader, say, or a 6th grader, that young child is seeing how this older child is learning, studying hard, just gaining more and more knowledge. And so they aspire towards that. So the younger children tend to work really hard. Now, the other thing is that because the teacher sometimes needs help. She's busy. Let's say she doesn't have an assistant. So she'll call on the older children to help the younger children. And that really reinforces their learning, because you can't teach something if you don't understand it. But it also creates a very sweet relationship between the children. So it becomes just like an extended family setting. You don't get the kind of bullying that you get in these kind of institutional schools that we see today. You just don't get those kind of problems. So the children really function more as an extended family. And then they really build community around the schoolhouse. Like the old towns, the community was built around the schoolhouse. It would serve different functions. Sometimes it would serve sometimes it would be the church. Sometimes it would be the town center, where the town would come together and have meetings. They were all independent too. The land was given to them by the government, but the schools were actually run by the families. So they chose their teacher, they built the schools, they paid for everything. So it was very parent run. But the key here is that the children were in a mixed age setting. And I'm not talking about, 1 or 2 grades, which is, you'll see that today, maybe you'll have a 3rd and 4th grade together. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a big, age difference. So you have younger children, younger children aspiring to, know what the older children know. the older children helping the younger children. It's just a very beautiful relationship. And even in a homeschool, you really want to, get your children thinking the same way, have the older children help the younger children and so forth. The other thing too is because they're going at their own pace, they still have that sense of competing against themselves. And, it's they're self-driven, right? And there's no sense of having to keep up with the group. So kids aren't getting labeled in the sense that they do in the system today. They're not getting labeled with grades like a C, and so they don't feel like they're very smart, or an A, and so they think they're super smart. It's not that same kind of labeling, because in the one-room schoolhouse model, you don't move them forward until they know their lessons, right? So, theoretically, everybody should have an A before they move on. So they have to know their material. So it's a very beautiful, way of structuring a school. If you can't homeschool, you want your children well educated, then the schoolhouse model really is the best model. Now let me tell you what the pros and cons are. They're not a big deal really. Okay, they're actually pretty simple. With the homeschool model, as parents teaching, and this was very important for me because I also worked when I was homeschooling, you have flexibility of schedule, right? So I can choose my hours, I can choose my vacations, I don't have to have parent meetings. It's all very, dependent upon my decisions. Obviously in a schoolhouse, it's not going to be like that. You're going to have parent meetings, you're going to have a set schedule, everything's going to be very fixed like it is in a regular school setting. So that's just in terms of child's education, it doesn't matter. It's really just inconvenience of the parents. So for some parents, and like I was like this, I really needed the flexibility of a schedule. But if you don't need that, then the schoolhouse is an excellent model. I would seriously consider it. And the other thing with that's one thing. The other thing is that there's actually two things. The other thing is that in the schoolhouse model, it functions as, like I said, an extended family. So you're not out, having to join play groups and join homeschooling outings, things like this. You don't have to go out and search for groups and people to do things with. Right? Because it's already there for you. You've already got the families, you've got the kids. That's all very easy. So that's a pro to the schoolhouse. So with the homeschooling, obviously you have to make more of an effort there. It's, easy enough to do, as long as you have other homeschoolers in your area. And if you don't, I always tell people be the first. Someone's got to start it, right? Just be the first. You'd be surprised who shows up, right? So, but those would be the pros and cons. There's really only two. So anyway, so we are starting one in Pennsylvania. I've actually been waiting for somebody who really got this model, and I've been working with it's a young woman who has been taking my courses, and so she's been studying with me, I want to say about a year, and so she wants to take this on, and so we're going to do it together. It's something I've really wanted to do, just help people set this model up, because I do think it really does. It's a middle point between having to put your kids into a public school, in homeschooling. Again, a lot of people can't homeschool. So it is a middle point. But it does take someone who's brave enough to do it, because it does take courage to do this. You got to believe in it. And also somebody who's willing to just take it on, because obviously it's a lot of work. But anyway, so we're doing this. So anyways, this is something I'm very passionate about. I kind of figured out this model years and years ago, and I wanted to do my own, but I never got that opportunity too. So I love, let me just step back. I did have a little one in my house for a while, because I was teaching, I think, 4 children at that time. So I got a sense of how it all works, but I've really studied it. I've researched it. I really, I understand the system very, very well. And again, our literacy rates were the highest at this, when we had the schoolhouses. So if this is something that interests you like this, I would just let me know that it interests you. I'm just kind of curious, what people's response is. Does it make sense to you? Do you need, more explanation? I did a whole blog post on it too, which I can actually link here if people want that. Just let me know. But yeah, I'm totally convinced by this model. All right, so just wanted to pop on today and share that with you. For those of you who are here for the first time, of course, I forgot to introduce myself again. I'm Elizabeth Hanson. I run Smart Homeschooler. I help parents to raise and educate their children. So I'm also a certified parenting coach, and I'm also a homeschooler with 2 children in the university system now. So I have two courses, one for birth to age 7, everything you need to know to raise your children well, raise your child well. And then after that, it's a Smart Homeschooler Academy, where I really am pretty hands-on with helping you get set up so you can homeschool your children. Not a public school education, like a very serious education. So, I have a whole curriculum around that, the kind of education children used to get, and the kind that any parent with the desire and the passion can give their child, and to the best that they can do it. But it will be far superior to public school. So don't even don't think you can't do it. You can. All right. So I just wanted to share that with you today, and I will see you next week. All right. Take care.